Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa. I'm one of the dietitians here at Cedardale along with Sam. Today, we're going to talk about a big topic that I think a lot of people have been asking personally me about, but it's also been floating around on social media and online. Hello. So we're going to dive into it. Of course, this is a very big topic, and we only have an hour. So we can only dive in so much. So I will leave 10 minutes at the end for any questions. And I meant to bring my business card, but obviously I forgot. So if you if you would like my email, I'm happy to go run down and grab my card down there. So there might be more individual questions that you have afterwards. But I will leave some time, which if you see me check my phone, I just do tend to talk a lot. So if you see me looking at my phone, it's just to make sure we have time at the end. Okay. So this is me again, just a little bit about me. I actually got my bachelor's in exercise science, worked as an exercise physiologist for a few years, then went back. I always had interest in nutrition, and again, they kind of do go very much hand in hand, as Cedardale is very much proud of. So I went back, became a dietitian. I've been here a little over a year. I also work part-time at a private practice online. So yeah. Okay, let's start off with a statistic, why don't we? So, as of 2024, the dietary supplement market is currently worth more than $60 billion, with as many as 100,000 different products available to consumers. So, it is very much a product that is gaining a lot of money. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of different supplements come out that you're not really sure about, or you're not really sure what's in them. And that's what we're going to kind of dive into a little bit today. So, and actually, before we start, raise a hand. Who in here takes any type of dietary supplement? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to see. That's what I thought. So what actually is a dietary supplement? So the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994 defines a dietary supplement. It's a very vague definition of what it is. It's a product intended for ingestion that, among other requirements, contains a dietary ingredient. What's a dietary ingredient? That could be anything from a vitamin, a mineral, an amino acid. It could be an herbal, botanical. It could be any sort of thing that they deem a dietary ingredient. We won't go through every dietary ingredient because there's a laundry list of it. It's hard to get on the ingredient list once you're on it. It's on there kind of forever in a sense, but it's very hard to add another dietary ingredient onto this list. And again, supplements kind of in the name say what they're for. They're to supplement our diet. So kind of like to always start this off as a dietitian, gotta put this out here is I'm always a food first type of dietitian. Supplements can be very helpful for people, but I always like to look at what people are eating first. So again, we'll talk about that as we move through. So I kind of broke these supplements into 5 different categories. So we have vitamins and minerals, sports supplements, specialty supplements, which I classified things like omega-3, probiotics, creatine, targeted health supplements, and herbal supplements. Okay, how many of you are familiar with the regulation of supplements? Okay, good. Well, good. Well, you'll learn something here. So, so I'm gonna just read through these. I put these on the slide because I really want these kind of emphasized, and then I'm gonna elaborate a little bit on it. So, first of all, manufacturers and distributors of supplements are responsible for making sure dietary supplements are safe and meet legal standards. Which, first of all, that sentence in and of itself is very vague. Okay, they're supposed to be making sure that these are safe and legal, but who's regulating these things? So the FDA is not. So the FDA does not perform any approval of dietary supplements before they hit the market. Unlike medications, which have to go through a whole phase. I was going to put a slide on there, but I'm like, let's keep it away from medications. But they do have to go through a bunch of phases and clinical trials in order to get to the market. Dietary supplements do not have to go through any type of phasing or clinical trials in order for them to meet the market. The FDA does perform some post-market monitoring and enforcement after they hit the shelves, which, in my opinion, is a little bit too late. So they're already being distributed to all of you, and already sold. There is kind of a database that is in charge of your reporting any side effects that might come along with supplements, investigating serious effects, and adverse things that might come from these supplements. One thing is, it puts that responsibility on the company. So we're relying on the company that's selling these supplements to be regulating and recording all these things that they're supposed to do, but there's no real organization of how this is put together. So it's kind of, we're relying on the trust of the companies. The second thing is, a lot of people are taking multiple supplements, so they're not really sure, like, am I having adverse effects from this supplement or this, or they don't usually even think of a supplement having these adverse effects at all and not bringing them up to either a dietitian or a doctor. So another kind of, I like the statistics here. So dietary supplements are not required to be standardized in the United States. In fact, no legal or regulatory definition exists in the United States for standardization as it applies to dietary supplements. So each company and each manufacturer for supplements might have their own type of standardization, but there's no overarching standardization of dietary supplements of things that they must meet. So that might mean that one batch of a certain supplement can look very different from batch to batch because there's no official type of standardization. So other thing, so myths about supplements, and I don't want to, pause too much and interrupt the presentation, but has anyone heard of any of these myths, or is there any other that kind of come to mind when you think of supplements? So we have, if a little is good, more is better. Natural means safe. All supplements are tested before hitting the market. More expensive equals better quality. Clinically studied, doctor recommended. Any others that people hear about supplements? That's okay. Have people heard of these?
Yeah.
All these? Okay. So we're going to dive a little bit into each of those. So first of all, if a little is good, more is better. That's not necessarily the case. There is a form of toxicity that can build up with certain types of vitamins and minerals. And those are the ones that are kind of the basic vitamins and minerals, vitamin A, vitamin K, calcium, those types of things. But then we have this other whole like specialty supplements where we don't really actually know what the dosage is in that amount. So sometimes it's hard to determine, am I getting what amount is okay, or am I getting the toxic level? And it's sometimes very hard to determine what this is because it's not very clear on the label. Another one is natural means safe. I feel like natural is thrown around a lot. It's like, ooh, natural. But, natural really does not have a distinct definition of what actually natural means. So, a lot of these like botanical and herbal supplements say they're natural, but then they have a ton of other chemicals in them that aren't tested. So maybe that one specific, and we'll talk about herbal supplements, that specific main one in there is quote unquote natural, but then there's a bunch of other things incorporated into that supplement that we don't know about. Again, we already talked about, supplements are not tested before they hit the market. More expensive equals better quality. We'll dive into that in the next slide. And then we always see the clinically tested, doctor recommended. I see pharmacy recommended. So for clinically studied, again, kind of similar to natural, there is no exact, like what clinically studied, it sounds all fancy, like, ooh, we clinically studied this product. But really, the only thing that actually means is some product in this supplement, one of the, what maybe it's a sports supplement and it has creatine and it has caffeine and it has vitamin D. One of those items is clinically tested, but the whole product as a whole is not clinically tested. So they can get away with that wording. So it sounds like, oh, this whole product was tested, but it's really only one component of it that's tested. And then doctor recommended, pharmacy recommended, love the pharmacists and doctors, but when it comes to supplements, they don't always, in the nutrition realm of things, they don't really always know what's going on. So take that with a grain of salt. It's kind of similar to like an influencer telling you, I recommend this. depending on the doctor and what their kind of experience is, I kind of would take that doctor recommended as with a grain of salt as well. Okay, supplement claims. So there's three specific supplement claims to kind of be aware of. So these are things that are regulated and that are allowed to be on a specific bottle of supplement. So a structure/function claim describes how a nutrient supports normal body structure or function. So some things that you might see on a label would be supports immune health, support strong bones, mood support. So emphasis seeing here on support. So it's not claiming to, change anything or increase or do anything. It's support. So it's very general if you think of that word. What's not acceptable, which you shouldn't see these on labels, and if you do, it shouldn't be there. Relieves chronic constipation, prevents hangovers, lowers something. So anytime it's saying it prevents something, heightens something, lowers something, that shouldn't be on the label. And if it is, that's against what the regulations are saying. So if you see something like that, we definitely want to stay away from anything that's claiming to get rid or add anything of nutrient to our diet. So the next kind of claim is a nutrient content claim. So good source is actually coined as being something that can be used if something is 20% of our daily value of in a per serving of some type of nutrient. So that applies to ingredients on just a food label as well. But anytime something says it's a good source, it must be at least 20% or more of the daily value per serving. So sometimes you'll see good source of vitamin B12 is used on a product or contains 400 milligrams of omega-3. Those are all valid. They're just kind of facts. So if anything is saying packed with omega-3 fatty acids or high in calcium, when you look on the label and you see, oh, it's actually only 5% of my daily value, that's a false claim. And again, these things are supposed to be regulated, but I always like to point them out as things to look at because we can't always trust everything. The last one is a health claim. So these ones decide, oh, sorry, I can't even talk. Instead of the other two, this one is regulated by the FDA. So the FDA has to approve this claim before any supplements put it on the label. So one example of an acceptable health claim would be a healthful diet with adequate folate may reduce a woman's risk of having a child with a brain or spinal cord defect. So this is actual researched information. Doesn't necessarily mean if a bottle says that it has the right amount of folate, but that's a fact. Folate does help with a woman's risk of having a baby with a spinal defect. That's all it means. It doesn't really mean anything actually about the product, but it's good marketing. It's a good thing to get you to buy it. Anything that's not acceptable, again, you shouldn't see these on the labels, but look out for them if you do. Protects against the development of cancer, treats diabetes, reduces pain. So anything that's very concrete, we don't want to trust that label. Again, the health claims are a little bit more regulated than the two other ones, but still something to be wary of when you're seeing all these supplements online, ones that, aren't following the rules of how the claim cycle works. So anyone heard of proprietary blends? Yeah, couple? Okay, well, it's because there's no so the definition, I put it up here because it's very vague, and that kind of speaks to why I don't really like proprietary blends and why it can be very confusing. Kind of sounds fancy, but it's really a collection of ingredients, often unique to a particular product, and sometimes given a special name. Okay, that is very vague. So if you see and now that you kind of know this, if you go and look at any supplements either at the store or ones you have at home, you probably will notice some of them either say proprietary blend. It also might be listed as any type of just blend in general, a complex, a matrix, a formulation. And what that kind of means doesn't mean much. It's just a fancy way of saying a collection of ingredients that we don't really know what they are. So that's basically what it means. So you'll see like, ooh, an herbal proprietary mushroom blend. Like, ooh, sounds all fancy. They're not really they're supposed to list the ingredients. They oftentimes won't. So when we're getting these supplements with blends or complexes in it, we don't really actually know what is in there. So that can make it very difficult to know what we're actually ingesting into our body. So that kind of leads to the question, are supplements actually what they say they are? And again, although it might seem like this isn't a slam against the supplement industry, it's more to make you more aware to be able to make better decisions. So I feel like this first half is kind of a slam, but it's not meant to be. Okay, a few other statistics. I thought these two would kind of be a little bit eye-opening as well. So according to a 2018 analysis of FDA supplement warnings between 2007 and 2016, unapproved pharmaceutical ingredients were found in over 700 supplements, particularly in products marketed for sexual enhancement, bodybuilding, or weight loss. So it's scary. It's again, not meant to scare you, but just to be aware that products are found in supplements all the time that weren't really intended to be there. One more quote. One investigation demonstrated that 4 out of 5 products pulled from the shelves of major realtors such as GNC, Target, Walgreens, Walmart don't contain any of the herbs listed on the supplement label. Yeah. So that leads us to third-party testing. Who has heard of third-party testing? Okay, a couple of you. So this is kind of, I wouldn't say our safeguard per se, but it gives us a little bit more comfort in knowing what's in these products. It's not 100% foolproof, but it gives us a little bit of wiggle room. So third-party certifications are independent programs, so they're not affiliated with the supplement companies that offer inspections and testing of manufacturing sites, raw materials, finished products. And this expands to not just supplements, but also to food products and beverages as well. So what they usually use for their quality standards and what they're looking for is, one, are the ingredients in there actually in there? Because without this, there's no way to know. We're just trusting them to put the ingredients they say they put in there. 2, is the amount per serving accurate? So for example, they could say there's 200 milligrams of calcium and they could be like, let's not waste it. Let's just do 100. So this kind of determining is that amount actually true? And then I don't know if I'd say this one's the most important. They're all super important, but is it free of contaminants? So does it have everything it says it has? Plus it also has some heavy metals and bacteria. We'll just throw that in there. So third-party testing, first of all, it's very expensive to get a product third-party tested. So when supplement companies go out of their way to get something third-party tested, they're putting a lot of money into this to get it researched and get it tested. So one of the big things, and I'm happy to answer questions about this at the end, is and I think I have it on the next page too, a website where you can look if a product is third-party tested. So the least kind of the minimum thing I would say to do when looking for a supplement is first seeing if it's third-party tested. That doesn't mean it's 100% accurate, but it gives you a pretty good idea of the product is what it says it is, and there's not a bunch of random stuff in it. Actually, I think, oh yeah, it's on the next page. So these aren't all of them, but these are some big corporations that are third-party testers. So we have BSCG, we have Informed Sports, we have NSF Certified Sport, and USP Certified. There are other ones too, but you can find the whole collection of them at consumerlabs.com. So on there, you can search any type of supplement or vitamin, mineral, and you can know if they're third-party tested or not. And again, they pay a lot of money to have their products third-party tested. So it'll also say on the product itself. So if you have a product at home right now and you're like, I want to know if it's third-party tested, they're going to put it on there. They paid a lot of money to do it, so it's going to be on the label. Sometimes not as obvious as you might think, which I'm always shocked about, but it should be on there. Okay, now let's dive a little bit into vitamins and minerals, which again, for this topic and just for the sake of time, we won't dive too much into each specific vitamin and mineral. And I'm happy to, again, answer questions at the end, and answer any individual questions you might have. But I just wanted to just throw this out here. Just a list of a few different vitamins, benefits, food sources, and daily value. So again, this is definitely a great resource to come back to in the recording, to look and see like what food sources are going to be good for vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, all of the different vitamins. We have them ongoing, and we have some minerals on here too. So I won't spend too much time talking about each individual one. I will point out one individually just because it's the one I talk about the most and the one that I feel the most confident recommending to any of you who live in New England in the winter is vitamin D. So you will see there are a decent amount of food sources from it, but they're not super high in vitamin D. So it's not impossible to get your vitamin D intake through food alone, but it's pretty difficult. And a vitamin D supplement is something that I recommend to almost everyone, especially again in New England in the wintertime. I don't need to know too much about you to know you probably might need one of those.
There's a lot of claims that you have to take vitamin K and D together.
Yes.
And I looked into it. Vitamin K is very expensive.
Vitamin K is expensive. Yeah.
So is that a requirement, or is that?
It's not a requirement. Nope. It's a little bit of a let someone else ask that, so I'm gonna answer it at the end. I would say it is a little bit of a marketing claim, but is some truth to it too. So I'll answer that at the end. Remind me if I don't say it, but and we'll talk about some other things at the end about taking certain other vitamins together and which ones to take separately. Because I feel like a lot of times, and again, I'm included in this, I'm guilty of this too, is taking all of your vitamins and minerals together at the same time, which obviously it's easier and easier to remember, but sometimes you might not be getting the full benefit of all those. So we'll get to that. But definitely these 4 slides are ones to come back to and look at if you have questions about them, and just to be more aware of what foods are going to be a resource for each of these vitamins and minerals. Okay. Okay. Now, targeted health supplements. So I labeled the targeted health supplements as ones that are telling you that they're going to supply you with one certain health claim. So these are ones that these aren't all of them. There's a million. They wouldn't even fit on the slide, but I picked out a few that I see most commonly. And I don't know if any of these look familiar to anyone. These look familiar? And there's new ones all the time. Like this one I just found the other day. So like I didn't even know. Like people bring me supplements all the time. They're like, oh, I'm taking the Lemmy shrink or whatever. And I'm like, I've never heard of that. So that's the thing with nutrition. Like every day there's something new. So I often hear about some of these supplements through my clients because I'm not seeing all of these as they come out and as they come out on social media and in the store. So a few to kind of point out, again, we have the kind of the bone health, we have immune, we have metabolism. That's a big one that I see a lot. Multivitamins, that's pretty common. Naked gut. So this one has like a daily digestive. Again, it doesn't really tell you on the bottle what it is. It just says naked gut. What does that mean? This one me and Sam were kind of laughing at. Body toning gummies. We're like, what? So interesting wording, but okay. So we don't have time to go through each and every single one, but I picked out a few that I thought would be helpful to kind of talk about. So the first one being the multivitamins. So even just within the category of multivitamins, we have a ton. So first of all, when you go to the store, it's just like completely overwhelming. We have just the regular multi. We have a men's multi. We have a men's 50 plus. We have a women's. We have a woman's 50 plus. We have a prenatal multi. We have a sports multi. Like which one are we supposed to take? So although we're not going to go through the ingredients of every single vitamin, again, I'm happy to do that individually, but it's a little bit hard in this setting. But I was just kind of wanted to mention a few kind of differences between them. So the multi, again, it very much depends on the brand, because in one brand there could be different percentages of each type of vitamin. So that really depends on the brand. But again, it kind of goes back to the third-party testing. If we're getting something that is third-party testing and we have a good brand, I personally like Nature Made. They are third-party tested, so I usually just stick to that because it's easy and they have a ton of different types of vitamins. But again, depending on what brand you get, there can be different values and amounts of each type of vitamin. So that really will depend on vitamin to vitamin. The 50 plus ones for women, for example, those usually have a bit more calcium in them, typically a bit more iron, where the men's multi doesn't have as much in there. So there's little differences between them. And again, it varies very much based on the brand too. So that's why there's no standardization. So you could buy like a 1-a-day men's multi and you could buy a Nature Made men's multi and they could be different in what their values are. So kind of looking at them each individually is the most important thing to look for. And that's why knowing kind of what to look for in these things is very important. So again, we're not going to be able to get to everything today, but I think it's important to just point out these nuances so you know like what the difference is. And then a prenatal vitamin, usually it's going to have more folic acid in it as well. So actually, I did want to point out the multivitamin sports because I actually had never seen that one either. And I don't know if you can see it from here because it's very small, but underneath it, it says 13 performance blends. And I was going to put the label on it, but I forgot to put it on there. But when I was reading it, it was all of those complexes and blends and random stuff. So they're trying to make it so maybe some of those things could affect how you're performing. It really depends on what it is. So when it's a blend, it's just like pretty much impossible to tell what amount, how much is in that blend, rather than if it's just, okay, it has creatine and this is the amount. Like, okay, I know what it is. If it's a blend and this has actually 13 performance blends, I was looking at it like, I literally couldn't tell you what was in this. I have no idea. So that one I haven't seen before, but I wanted to bring it up because it was new to me as well. Okay, bone health supplements. I picked out a few here because again, not all bone health or bone support supplements are made the same. Most of the time, they are going to have some degree of like vitamin D and calcium because those actually do. When calcium is better absorbed in our body when our amount of vitamin D is at a good level. So in that case, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take calcium and vitamin D together. More so if your vitamin D level overall is at a good level and you take calcium, it's better absorbed. If you take them together, that's fine too, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be taken together. But you'll see in a lot of these bone health supplements, they are just paired together just for convenience. And that's another thing to point out too, is a lot of multivitamins also have vitamin D and calcium. So or sorry, not some of them have calcium, some of them don't, some of them have vitamin D, some of them don't, but I'll oftentimes see someone, they're like, oh, I'm taking a calcium supplement, I'm taking a multi, I'm taking a woman's thing, and you add it up and they're taking in like 300, 400% of the calcium they need. And again, for some things it's fine. And other things it's not so fine. So if, just for example, some of our water soluble vitamins, if we have an excess amount of those, we just pee it out, no big deal. But some of the fat soluble vitamins, they can increase in our body and lead to toxicity. So those are things to consider, and that's why not more isn't always better. Okay, sports supplements. Had to throw this in here because we're at Cedardale. So I'm sure a lot of people have questions about some of these. Okay, so these are, again, there were so many, but these are the ones I chose to kind of display here. So we have collagen, we have a pre-workout, creatine, BCAA, whey, liquid IV, aka electrolytes, and then we have a Celsius over there, an energy drink. And are people familiar with some of these? Do these look familiar? And again, there's so many more, but we only have so much time here. I picked out a few. So creatine is the biggest one because I feel like, first of all, people ask about this a lot. And luckily, it's actually one of the most well-researched supplements. So there is actually research that it does can help with increasing strength with your workouts, increasing power, increasing performance. But again, it all comes back to kind of the downer side of it is we don't always know that the dose that is in the supplement is actually the dose that it says it is. So again, since it's studied more, I feel more confident recommending something like this if someone is struggling with their, performance in their exercise. But also another thing to know is that actually, what was I going to say? Oh, there's been a lot of research actually lately with menopause and postmenopause with creatine as well. So I wanted to bring that up because actually that Sam and I were talking about that earlier. And it's a topic that, with a lot of these supplements, they very much were, no offense to the men, but very much studied on men and not women. So a lot of these newer studies are coming out with how much creatine can actually benefit not only pre and postmenopausal women, but any woman at any stage of their life. And as women, we don't create as much creatine in our body, so it's found to be even more helpful in terms of helping you perform in your workouts. Again, all this being said, when we think about like what things are important for building muscle, kind of my pyramid of how this would work would be like food and exercise, rest, stress, supplements. So it's like, okay, you can take creatine all you want, but if you're not eating well and you're not exercising, it's not gonna magically make you stronger and gain muscle. So that's always something that I point out too, is that it could be a helpful aid, but we need to address all the other kind of things at the bottom of the pyramid too.
I have a question about creatine.
Sure.
Recently, I've seen a lot about the use of creatine over 5 grams, crossing the blood-brain barrier, cognitive behavior, dementia.
I've not heard that actually. I do know like the recommended dose is usually between 3 and 5. I haven't heard that specifically though. So that, and again, that's the other thing to point out, and I'm happy to look that up for you, is with research, is that from one specific study? Is it from a collection of studies? That's a lot of things too that we see with the good and bad of all these supplements is that you might see, people have sent me what was it? Was it creatine? Maybe it was creatine. Someone sent me an article earlier this year and we're like, oh, look, I better share this with the class. Like it was a group class. It's saying that this certain supplement causes like cancer or something. And I was like, well, let me take a look at it first. And I looked and it was based on like this one study with 12 people or something. So that kind of goes back to I haven't heard that. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not something that's in the research, but it's not something that's significantly researched that I would point out to people as they're having these products. So yeah. I saw you first.
One thing I researched this a lot. So they
Yeah.
German creatine is best because it goes through like a strict manufacturing process,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pure. And everything in the US, they keep putting stuff in that says it will help things better.
Anything that's like has anything added to it besides creatine, I'd be weary of. So anything that's just, and actually I don't know if honestly I put this one up here. I don't actually know. I have to look back and see if this is actually just creatine, if there's anything else added, but my recommendation would be to find a supplement that's just creatine and doesn't have like, oh, a creatine blend or like adding other things to it. Yep. Yeah.
Some people say,
Oh yeah.
take it and then take a week off. Like load it and then basically cycle your body through it. And after 5 weeks, take a couple of weeks off and cycle back through it. Your recommendation, like not to cycle cycles.
I would just stick with, I mean, again, that kind of goes back to there could be some research that says that. I don't really recommend that cycling. I recommend just taking it before your workouts. Also, I feel like this is an annoying response, but it really also depends on the person too. So I would say like I'd have to kind of know like what you're doing for workout, what other things you're eating, and that might kind of change my recommendation. But in general, I usually don't have any sort of like on off kind of recommendation for the supplements. But that's not to say that it might not be helpful for some people. So I would have to kind of know exactly what you were doing, what workouts, things like that. So and that's why one side, and that's kind of the annoying. I feel like people are annoyed at dietitians. Sometimes they're like, oh, well, is this good or bad? Or should I do this or that? And I'm like, well, it depends, which is an annoying response, but it's the true response. So, what was your question?
Well, in response.
Oh, yeah.
I think the loading phase like really can wreck your gut if you go high.
Yeah, that can be a concern. Yep.
Even starting it, if you just do the 5 grams, can be a little, so you get used to it.
Yep.
My original thing was taking the creatine, and then you go to your doctor and you have a physical and you get your blood test, and then they see creatine in your blood, they freak out because they think you have kidney disease.
Oh, I haven't heard that actually.
Well, because the creatinine goes higher in your blood.
Yeah, so you can, and that's where it can be like, we want to make sure you don't overdo it with it either.
Right.
So
they might say go off of it and then redo your blood test
and
whatever.
Oh, I actually no one's brought that up to me too, but that and that kind of goes through.
Well, real life experience. So
good. Okay. No, I like that because again, that's the thing. Like everyone's reaction and what supplement exactly they use and is it actually the thing it's supposed to be. So,
but that's what they say it does, though. It raises.
Oh yeah,
it's in the blood now because of it, but it's not because your kidneys are.
Yes. So so that's something to, and that's why also a good thing is, and I don't know if you did or not, but like a lot of times I feel like people don't always say which supplements they're taking to their doctor, and then they're like, oh yeah, I actually do take this random herbal supplement, and we'll kind of get to that point of like some of the interactions with medications that can be of concern. Yeah, you're like, maybe not. And that's sometimes my thing. I'm like, you don't have to be, you don't have exactly. So is the risk and benefit, like which is which one? And again, I usually go towards the more modest side of like, unless you absolutely need it. Yes, there's evidence on that it can be helpful, but is it worth the possible risk? That's just my opinion. Electrolytes. So again, liquid IV is just one of the bunch of electrolyte supplements that I see. So again, electrolytes are 100% necessary. I mean, you probably, when you go to the doctor, you get your electrolytes, you get your potassium, blood reading, your sodium, your magnesium. These are all crucial for bodily functions. Like we need them, but we're able to get them all through food. So unless you're like a really intense like marathon runner sweating out in like the 100-degree weather, like you do not need a liquid IV or some type of electrolyte. It can actually, again, in excess lead to heart problems. So for example, like I don't know exactly again the exact amount in liquid IV, but for example, there can be upwards of like 500 milligrams of sodium in a liquid IV, which we don't necessarily need. Plus, if you're, watching your blood pressure and you have any sort of heart condition, adding that unnecessary 500 milligrams of sodium isn't probably your best bet. And you can get equally as hydrated with just making sure you eat a variety of foods and drinking water. So unless there's extenuating circumstances where you're exercising for hours and hours on end, or you're out in the hot sun and sweating profusely, it's really not something I recommend to the day-to-day exerciser. So okay, pre-workout. So what is pre-workout? And actually I was again trying to put the definition here, and I'm like, this definition also is very like broad because really pre-workouts are very broad. So I'm going to read the definition. A multi-ingredient pre-workout supplement, also called pre-workout, okay, are a class of dietary supplements intended to take before exercise, and they typically contain a blend of ingredients such as caffeine, amino acid, creatine, and beta-alanine. So that being said, I have heard of people like true life stories of, oh, I took pre-workout before my workout and it helped me feel more energized. But most likely the thing that probably made you feel more energized is the caffeine. So, and that's the thing with pre-workouts is it's it's not really, I don't know if it's always called a blend. Well, I guess they call it a blend. I don't want to compare it exactly to proprietary blends, but it kind of is the same vibe, is that it's saying all these things are in here, but it's not always saying what the actual ratio of all these ingredients are. And also, it's we don't really know like where we're getting this kind of boost of energy from. And a lot of times it is the caffeine. So not just, and there's also not a ton of research. So unlike like creatine, there's so many, the pre-workouts can vary so much from each different brand and each different type that it's hard to say like pre-workouts, yes, they have this evidence-based research on it because they're so varied in what they contain and what the amounts are. So it's very hard to say. Again, with anything, people have seen, positive results from taking it. I think it's from the caffeine. Caffeine can, give you that boost of energy, feel more energized. So the other thing to note about pre-workouts, and again, this applies to kind of all the supplements too, is that oftentimes it's not just these four ingredients. Like it's a lot of like random sugar and random like additives that are added to it as well to make it taste good. Because if you just put all four of those things in, it's not going to taste the best. So they're trying to make it taste good. So they're putting all these fillers in as well that you don't really need. So would it just be easier to maybe have a coffee before? Maybe. So it's just, one of those, and honestly, I don't know actually the exact price, but I know these can be pretty pricey too. So that's like another whole thing to think about as well. Okay, now let's, oh wait, let's just, okay, cool. All right, perfect time, I think. Okay, specialty supplements. Again, there's so many of these too, but I just pointed out a few that I feel like people ask me about more often. So we have the greens, any of the green type of supplements and drinks. Glucosamine and I always pronounce it wrong. I can't pronounce it. See, if you can't even pronounce it, should we be eating it? Melatonin, CoQ10, probiotic, prebiotic, fish oil. So again, there's a time and place for each of these, and kind of answering it on a broad basis. I can't really recommend one versus the other. Some have more research on them than others, but I would say in general, besides the fish oil, a lot of these things we can easily get through food. The fish oil, I would say you can get through food, but if someone's a vegan or they don't like fish, it's going to be hard to get that fish oil except for in a supplement form. So that's something that I often do recommend to anyone who it doesn't eat fish or is a vegan / vegetarian. But I wanted to zone in on a couple in this realm. And again, I'm happy to answer questions about the other ones too. Probiotics, because again, I feel like that's a question that a lot of people ask about. So probiotics are a beneficial type of bacteria and are essential to achieving a healthy gut bacteria microbiome. So again, there's a lot of importance, and I feel like this topic is being talked about online a lot more. Not every supplement is going to be made the same, and kind of goes for everything, but I'll throw it out there again. There's many foods that do have probiotics in them naturally. So I always recommend let's try to get those in first. If you're really struggling with that or don't like any of the foods that have probiotics, this is a good kind of alternative, but they're not all made the same. Things to kind of look out for is looking for the different strains, looking for how many colony forming units there are, and kind of goes back to the third party testing. Is it a well-known brand? Because depending on how it's made, remember a probiotic is live bacteria. So if we're getting a brand that's not so great, we might not actually be getting as many live bacteria in our vitamins that we want. Yes.
So how can they be live in a gummy?
It's hard. It's hard to be, it's not as effective. It's like, I know I was actually, when I was doing this, I was like, yeah, how can it be live? To be honest, I don't really know. That's why I don't really believe that it has the full amount that it says it does in it. Because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, how do they put it in the gummy? Because that kind of goes beyond my scope of like, how do they get it in the gummy exactly? But it's probably not as effective. So, and we'll actually talk about different gummies are not like the best source of getting these, not just probiotics, but just vitamins in general. Actually, is that, no, that's not next. Okay, almost there.
They tend to be very expensive too.
Yeah, they are expensive because they're really candy. Like they taste good. Herbal supplements, real quick. Again, these are some I hear about often. Again, these are more a bit more skeptical about, just because a lot of these ones do have interactions with medication. So St. John's wort has a lot of interactions. And again, that's why I always really encourage people with their dietitian and or doctor to really bring up, because people are like, yeah, no, I don't take anything. And then like a month later, they're like, yeah, oh yeah, I do take St. John's wort. And I'm like, well, that would be nice to know, because it interferes with a lot of different like blood thinners and things like that. So it's important to point out. Same with some of these other ones, the ashwagandha, not really indicated in people who are pregnant. Again, there's just not enough research to support that it's, actually what it says it is. So honestly, there's just like two components of it. Is the actual thing, ashwagandha, safe? / is that actually what's in the bottle? So there's two pieces to the puzzle. Turmeric. So turmeric is, you can buy it at the store. You can buy fresh turmeric. You can buy powdered turmeric. But the main kind of bioactive component in it is curcumin. So it has anti-inflammatory properties. So yes, there is research to show that it has the ability to enhance the body's production of antioxidants, but high doses of it can affect certain medications. So some, just to name a few, pain relievers, chemotherapy, blood thinners, immunosuppressant drugs. So again, these are really important things that we need to point out when we're going to the doctor to see if they interfere with any medications. Again, going back to this once again, and this is what I'll say with all of them, is the therapeutic dose. We don't know what we're getting in this. So it says it's a certain amount, but is it actually, was it what it says it is? So that just, that's where I sometimes say, like, okay, some people do find benefit to this and, experience the anti-inflammatory properties, but we really do individually have to weigh the risk and benefit of, do I want to get these benefits potentially, but also what are some of the risks associated with it? And same goes with ashwagandha. So small clinical studies suggest it may reduce anxiety, improve sleep, and patients with insomnia and reduce stress levels. Emphasis on small clinical studies. So they really try to trick you with the clinical studies and the, really looking, and as a dietitian, that's like, half of what we did in school is being able to decipher research and be able to, like, they make it sound in research articles like, oh, we found that this reduces stress. And then you look and it's like one random study with 5 people. So it's very much dependent on where this research is coming from. Okay, we'll go quickly with this. What form of gummy is better? Again, the annoying dietitian in me will be like, it really depends, because it does. Gummies are not going to be as well absorbed, but they are tasty and they're easy to eat. So a lot of people, gear towards those. A liquid supplement is pretty absorbent in our body, but sometimes it's hard to get that concentration in a liquid supplement. A capsule is like the most readily used type of way to get your dietary supplement in. And powdered supplements, it really depends. I would say the biggest thing to know about powdered supplements is that it's usually pretty easy to absorb, but since it's a powder form and usually people are either mixing it with water or something else, they don't want it to taste disgusting, so they're adding a bunch of filler things in there too. So is one better than the other? Not necessarily. Capsule is usually the best absorbed in our body, but it also depends on other things. Like there's other things that people don't always think of that are a big consideration. Like, are you able to swallow pills? Like, how is your throat? Like things like that make a difference. So are we saying like, oh, if you can't take a capsule, like forget it, like a gummy won't help at all? No, that's not true. But knowing what's in them too, because the powdered supplements and the gummies are going to have a lot more additives to it than just the regular capsule and the liquid supplement. That it's mostly just going to have whatever supplement is without any fillers in it.
If you want to take a protein supplement, couldn't do it in a capsule.
No,
You really
not really. Yeah, some things like you have.
Scoops
Exactly. And what you'll see with a lot of powdered protein powder is if you look at the ingredient list, there's a ton of ingredients. So that's where we can not only look for the third party testing, but like how many other ingredients there are. Probably the ones that have less might not taste as delicious. They not might not be like the caramel chocolate like protein powder, but then it doesn't have a bunch of these fillers in. And also you have to just question like what's more important to you too. Like there's no right or wrong answer to that either. If you're like, oh well, like I don't care if there's the sugar in it. I need to get more protein, so this is the way I'm gonna do it. Great. But if you're like, no, I want something to just be protein powder, I'm fine if it tastes kind of gross. Okay, then go for the cleaner version. Uh, and then these are some, again, I know we only have, I want to leave time for some questions too. But these are just some examples of kind of things to consider. And there's like a laundry list of these, but I just pointed out a few that I feel like people ask about most. Um, First of all, the amount of calcium absorbed and utilized, I said this one, I guess. Oops, I jumped the gun. By food is increased with adequate vitamin D levels in the body. So if you have enough vitamin D, in your body, calcium is absorbed better. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are all fat soluble vitamins, are better absorbed when you're getting some type of fat with it. So if you're taking one of these right in the morning without food, not it doesn't mean you're not going to absorb it at all, but you're going to absorb it a lot better if you take it with food, specifically something with some type of fat. Another thing that a lot of people, again, this kind of goes to, and again, I'm guilty of it too, of having all like different things in the morning because it's just easier to obviously remember to take everything at one time. But if you're taking a calcium supplement with a multivitamin, specifically if that multivitamin has iron, that iron and calcium are going to compete for absorption. So you're not going to get as best bang for your buck. So like in an ideal world, you would take, again, this is just, one scenario is you would take your multivitamin in the morning with food, and then sometime in the middle of the day, you would take your calcium. So again, these are just a few examples of some of these absorption questions. But the list goes on, and that's why it's kind of good to know like what things you're taking when and with what other things, and are there overlap on those vitamins and minerals. And again, we're not going to go too into detail with this because again, it's going to be very much on a person to person basis, but I just brought an example up like warfarin, a prescription blood thinner, Ginkgo, why do I have to write weird names that I can't pronounce? Biblabo, an herbal supplement, aspirin, and vitamin D can each thin the blood. So, like for example, if you're taking aspirin and then you're also taking this herbal supplement, and then you're also taking warfarin, and then you also are like, oh yeah, I have vitamin D in my multivitamin. That can be very dangerous to take all those things together. We might not piece them together, but if we kind of look at it, and that's why it's again very, very important to make sure you're listing what supplements you're taking, even if you might not necessarily think it's important to mention. So kind of overview when supplements may be helpful to bridge any gaps with nutrition deficiencies that you're not getting through food, certain medical conditions, vegan, vegetarians, certain restricted diets, pregnancy, older adults, the list goes on and on. So what should I actually take? Well, I don't have an answer. So there's no specific recommendation. Everyone is different. So, the best bet is to, meet with a dietitian to kind of see what you're doing food wise first, and then figure out if it would be helpful and beneficial to add in something else. And again, I like the food first approach, and I'm saving you money too. So like, if people come in and they're like, here's my bag of supplements, I'm like, that's a lot of money. Yeah. So, it adds up too. So it's like, if it's going to be helpful, then 100%. Like I want to help you get to that point. But if it's not, I don't want you to waste your money and time either. Key takeaway: supplements can be helpful when they supplement our diet, not replace it. Food and medical background should be discussed before supplement use. Quality and safety matter. So third-party testing. Individual needs vary a lot based from person to person. One person might see an effect with a supplement, or the same person taking it might not. And there's just still a lot up in the air in terms of how effective they are for specific needs and what is actually in the product. And I just threw a picture of me just for fun. This is my puppy and my husband. Yeah, so any questions? I don't know, a lot, not many?